Thank you very much. My name is Noel Muridzo. I will talk to social work and corporate social responsibility. These I call strange fellows. The business of business is to make money. And the business of spending money and corporate social responsibility, some did not look at it as a worthwhile business and making business sense. I'll talk to corporate social responsibility and the 5 pillars where you look at who is important. And when we talk about corporate social responsibility, we talk about the communities themselves as the beneficiaries and users and customers, but also to say they also invest in businesses, and businesses invest in the communities in which they operate. And for them to operate and to be sustainable, they need the communities, right? The other pillar that is important is the issue of the social paradigm that looks at planning, that looks at output, the outcome, and what they will do. And different companies and corporates have gone into different ways of looking at things. Some look at vulnerable children. For example, in Zimbabwe, you have Capenham Trust, you had Munodaishe Trust looking at orphans and vulnerable children. Some look at sports, some look at different issues. And these days we are talking about climate change. Some look at climate change and such issues. You also have the corporate itself and the business. Some look at corporate social responsibility as a marketing tool or a promotion strategy. But to say that for the one that I'll talk to, one of the pillars was not to use the children or the programs that we were using as a marketing tool. And this is where also you'd find I would have problems with some executives wanting us to use it as a marketing tool, because we felt we didn't want to benefit from what we did in the community. And this is why then there was the separation of the bank with the trust. And one other important pillar also is the issue of funding and resourcing the corporate social responsibility. Funding is important. It speaks to sustainability of the program and the inclusion of the corporate social responsibility within the budget framework of the corporate year in, year out, and the different models that can come up. The one that we had was the use of shares in the bank, and also use of shares in other companies that which dividend would then be used to fund the program. And in our case, it was to fund school fees, to fund educational assistance for children, and to fund housing and other needs for the children. And for us, it wasn't the game of numbers to say if we assist so many thousands, then we'll have done much. For us, it was the qualitative aspect of it. Yes, it's important to look at the numbers that you assist, but also it is important to look at the quality of the assistance that you give and the importance of not spreading thinly the resources that you have to try and accommodate numbers, and yet the children are not getting the quality. So it is important. But the last important one is the workers and the people who are involved in corporate social responsibility, and where you have the philanthropists or the funders or the promoters themselves. If you look at the Capenham Trust, I don't know whether they still use the same wording, but I think they've changed the wording. But you will link it to the founders and the promoters of Econet and the Masiwa family. If you look at Munodaishe Trust, you are looking at Patterson Timber and the Timber family as the promoters. But importantly, you are looking at the workers. In our case, we then had social workers working for Munodaishe Trust as a standalone entity. And these 5 pillars made important contribution in terms of the pillars of the corporate social responsibility drive that we had. Now, focusing on Zimbabwe, why do I start talking about HIV and AIDS in Zimbabwe? This then gives birth to Munodaishe Trust and the conversations that I would have with Auntie Patty. I remember meeting her many times in Milton Park when they had their offices and starting up. We had already started the Munodaishe Trust when they were starting up their Capenham Trust. Why HIV and AIDS? If you read literature on HIV and AIDS and zero down to Zimbabwe, you will find that HIV and AIDS was a pandemic that altered the socio-economic space and lives of people. Not only did it disrupt families in terms of the death of breadwinners, it also created orphans and vulnerable children along the way. So many children were left unattended to or were attended to through the extended family system. Remember the concept of Ubuntu. Remember the concept of our extended families within the African space. Yes, we have our extended family system. Yes, our extended family system kicks in. And in fact, in an African context, we do not have an orphan Jacob. Children belong to the whole family. Remember, when you marry Jacob, the wife belongs to the family. She comes into a family. The children that you have belong to the Mugumbate family. They belong to the Muridzo family. So when a person dies, the extended family was there. In fact, the family is there. We don't talk about orphans. But what was happening is that the extended family was weakened. One, by HIV/AIDS itself, and also in some circumstances where the grandmothers are the ones left to look after these children, and they do not have the resources to look after such children. And in other rare cases that you would find, in fact, not rare, but in other cases, you'd find that these children were now being left in childhood families. Now, this speaks to our social security systems. Yes, we had our traditional social security system in the extended family. But if you read Mushunje, she will tell you that it had been weakened. If you read Kaseke, he would tell you that it had been weakened by many factors that include the introduction of the monetary economy, that also include HIV itself, and that would also include the economic system. So it is against this background that we have HIV and AIDS, and we had Munodaishe Trust. You find that Munodaishe Trust begins when I was at Midland State, not Midland State University, but I was at Midland's AIDS Service Organization, MASO, as a student social worker in third year. And as part of my work, I would write in the Gweru Times, which was a local newspaper. And in that newspaper, I wrote an article that talked about orphans and the plight of these children. I remember a reporter called Dakwa visiting me. He was with a newspaper, which is still there, the Daily News, and we had an article that featured on orphans and vulnerable children. Unknown to me, just being a student, thinking that I want to just pass my fieldwork very well, unknown to me, these articles then were read by a Patterson Timber, who then said, in one of the articles, I suggested that companies could look at funding children. And my thinking was, if I could pay each child with one individual who could be Jacob, to pay, it would help such children have access to education. Because at that point, because of our political environment, donors had withdrawn. So as MASO, we now did not have funds for fees, and schools were opening. So I thought, let me write these articles. And the Renaissance Advisory Services responded. At the point when I finished the attachment, I came back to school and looked for Timba and said, thank you very much for assisting me. You helped me. I even got a 1 for my field work. I remember being supervised then by Professor Mpedziswa. He's the one who came to supervise me in Gweru. And I was given a 1. I was very pleased. I went to say, thank you very much. I got a 1, like all social workers at that point. I was looking at finishing and going now for my degree. After the degree, I also wanted to go to the UK. And the conversation we had with Timba, he says, no, I'm interested. Instead of sending the money to, I want you to continue. And I know your idea. Can we donate 10% of something that we are starting? And at that point, they were starting the bank. And that gave birth to Munodaishe Trust. And as Munodaishe Trust, we were providing children with educational assistance, healthcare services, housing for them, paying for their rentals. And I'm glad to tell you that as I speak to you, some of our children went on to study social work. Some of our children went on to become lawyers. Some went on to become surgeons, doctors, and so on. That's one of the benefits that came out of that. But most importantly, it was not all about being academic, but it was about giving children a chance to become what they want to be and to pursue what they want to be. Some did well in their informal activities, and now they have their livelihoods. So that was Munodaishe Trust that was doing that. And from that, I remember working also with Barclays. They had an IT department that was based they were based in Mount Pleasant, their branch in Mount Pleasant, who were focusing on IT. And I know we would do collaborations with them. And we won an award where 2 banks who are competing, but having one a project that was working with vulnerable children in Heathcliff. And as I have said, we also participated in past when we had the first cholera outbreak. When they started the Capenam, we also would contribute with ideas and such things. So that was Munodaishe Trust. And when I say painful lessons and the slumber, Munodaishe Trust is still there because you have its beneficiaries working and contributing to their own lives, working and contributing to their communities, and providing for their families and their siblings, which is what we had wanted anyway from the onset. But I would say some of the painful experiences are to do with resources. We talked about the 5 pillars, and one of the challenges is that of the funding models, where we look back and say we could have done it better. So when we restart it, I believe we will look at that differently. And in the case where we restart it, we'll also have some of the children that, or the beneficiaries that had gone through to then also become part of the directors in terms of the oversight role and the inclusion and participation of communities in these corporate social responsibility activities. So what were the social workers or social workers then doing in this project? One important one was that of resourcing. Apart from the shares and the dividend that we got from the different investments, we would also look for investments We would also look for resources from other partners. We would also get assistance from other corporates. For instance, we had the Grain Marketing Board, for instance, which is a government parastatal that was assisting us accessing maize meal for all our children. We also had OK Zimbabwe that would give and make our children access their groceries at their nearest outlet. OK Zimbabwe is a corporate. They would work with us and provide with us. They would also provide fun days for our children, invite our children to their OK Grain Challenge and host fun days for our children throughout the country. That was OK Zimbabwe, which was working with us. So that was important part of what social workers were doing. Part of the advocacy work also included documentation. In some cases, you would find that children would not have birth certificates. And when they have enrolled and now they want to write their grade 7 examinations, it was a requirement that they had a birth certificate. And some of these children did not have. And in Zimbabwean law, we had to have the death certificates of their parents. And in some cases, the parents themselves did not have the death certificates. So we would then also facilitate by looking for the relatives, going to the schools, working with the responsible authorities through the office of the Registrar General. They would help us. That was very key and important in helping our children access documentation, which we did. We would also be in the mix in talking about the plight of these children through newspaper articles, through pieces that we would write. But more importantly, we would also supervise students on fieldwork placements and on attachment, provide direct services in counseling and group work, and work directly with the children, but also administration of the trust itself and accountability and writing reports and accountability papers to various stakeholders. But in terms of research, in terms of the challenges that the children are facing, which would also enforce our arguments with management within the companies that would help us, it was key to make arguments based on facts. So it was important to talk about research and to research. What are the challenges and opportunities that are there or that were there or that are there for social workers in corporate social responsibility? One is working in a secondary setting. And working in the secondary setting has its challenges that include the issue of you are in a secondary setting. So you are an auxiliary and your services are looked at as an auxiliary. So that can also affect issues to do with funding and resourcing. Sometimes you find the priorities might not be given. But in our case, I would say because the founders and the promoters were very keen to promote this, you would find that we were very much resourced. If you read the example of Capenham Trust, for example, you will appreciate that the Masiwas are very passionate about their corporate social responsibility, and they do fund it. And in most cases, you find currently they are also involved in COVID-19, they've been involved in cholera and all other issues that affect the Zimbabwean community. And that then becomes key in terms of funding. One of the opportunities that came out is that these are new territories. So these were new frontiers. These were opportunities, employment, and also to get other social opportunities for social workers to look at. So I still believe these are new frontiers, and social workers and students can also dream about things that they can also do, and new frontiers that they can chart. So they are new frontiers, so we dream and go forward. One of the challenges that can also develop is the founder syndrome. These are hard lessons. So sometimes we need to let go and let the things that we start to grow beyond ourselves and our personalities. So it's an opportunity also to let things go and flourish beyond ourselves so that it grows. And new ideas and new people come with new ideas to even take it beyond what you even thought yourself as a founder. So I would say being a strange fellow in a secondary setting becomes very difficult. But when you acquaint yourself and you do your work very well, it then also makes those professionals and disciplines around you understand that corporate social responsibility is not only good practice for yourself or for the organization that you are in, but also important for communities they are. I have put in just only two recommended readings. One of the challenges that I have also highlighted is that we have not been documenting these things, and it creates a challenge. And the challenge is for social workers out there to document so that we get readings and we get information on these issues. Thank you very much, Dinotenda Siyabonga.